Welcome to the podcast series at the College of Education and Integrative Studies. My name is Jeff Pass. I'm the Dean of the College here at Cal Poly Pomona, and we are here today to discuss our Credentials program in administration. And for those of you who are not familiar with such programs, you'll find that we have a very special role here at Cal Poly, really the entire CSU, to prepare the next generation of administrators at local school districts and also to raise the level of leadership really throughout the region. And we have three graduates of the program along with us, whom we'll introduce in a little bit. But the first guest that we're going to talk to is Dr. Anthony Avina. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Tony, how long have you been at Cal Poly now?
Well, since 2002, so it's been a few years.
And were you hired on to develop the Administrative Credentials program?
I was. The program didn't exist, and Cal State LA was benefiting from the fact that we didn't offer the program. And Dean Navarro met with me and offered me an opportunity to join the faculty, which I did. And I have to tell you, it was a big transition to go from a superintendency, where you make things happen, to the kinds of things and blocks that roadblocks that you experience in higher ed. But I have found it to be a very rewarding thing, especially because I was able to work with wonderful candidates for our credential.
What were you trying to achieve as you developed the program from scratch?
Well, what I was trying to achieve was to provide a practical, user-friendly program, because the thing that I wanted to overcome was this thing about the impersonality that can happen in large institutions, such as the universities. So I wanted to personalize this whole approach, and I wanted to make it like a private school. And so the students were told, you are not a number, you're a name. And I want to call you by name, I don't want to call you by any number. So in doing that, we tried to make our program very practical, very practitioner-friendly. And I think we were successful, as you can see from the three of the individuals seated here today.
Right. Well, actually, we can see it from the legions of our graduates that are sprinkled all throughout the region. But what's the drawback of being practical? In some communities, that might be a sign of weakness, that you're too practical.
Well, you can be too theoretical, too. And I know we've had examples of individuals who perceive the superintendency as a position that can be attained regardless of your background, and then they step in, and then they have they have a lot of difficulty, and they end up causing the organization to suffer some drawbacks. So we feel like if we can train those people in our program who are excellent teachers, which is one of the first criteria, who meet all the other requirements, and we can see that they are able to communicate and convey a vision of what our schools can be and should be, then I think that's what our goal is, and that's what we've been able to do. We've seen a lot of things happen in our public schools in this region as a result of the leadership from people like these.
Right. So what we're trying to do, I guess, is bridge theory and practice.
Right.
So what kind of theoretical foundation was the program established on?
Well, we followed the thinking that came through various authors and various presenters, but we also invited people who were in the field to come to the classes and provide presentations, because we felt that it's okay to read about Marzano and his thinking, or to read about Fullen and his thinking and so on, but when it comes down to it, when the rubber hits the road, what do you want? And so we were very successful. I think we've been able to bridge that.
Mm-hmm. So what's involved in the program? How long does it take? What kinds of courses do the students take?
Well, we have a cohort model. And one of the things that we were very pleased with was that the cohort model seemed to work well with these students. What that basically means is they're assigned to a cohort. They attend classes in the same location, the same 2 classes a night, and then they have the usual finals and midterms. But the thing about it is, we want to try to get them into a setting where they can collaborate with each other, so that when they finish the program, they have a network that they can call upon to help guide them as they go through their individual experiences.
So they have colleagues in other school districts that they can confer with, but also they've developed the skills in collaboration that will enable them to be successful in their jobs.
That's what we're trying to do. That's what our endeavor is.
Okay. So what kinds of things did they study, or do they study?
Well, they go through a series of classes that includes leadership. That's a theoretical program. And then they also have school finance, personnel. Those are the practical things that, there's no argument about. The law is the law. We do school law, we do those kinds of things. And then they also have field work. And the field work is our intent to get them to go out and interact with people in leadership roles and find out how it's done so that they can adapt to their particular situation. So we try to give them those kinds of experiences.
So it's a really nice mix. And so let's find out how successful it is. We have Rebecca and Kevin and Rodney joining us. Why don't each of you tell us about what you're currently doing now, and what about the program has enabled you to be good at what you do?
Of course. Well, so many of the things that Tony said resonated with me, and I am currently the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for Glendora Unified School District.
Okay, for those of us who are unfamiliar with what such a position entails, what's involved? What are you doing there?
So I oversee curriculum implementation, adoption and implementation, pacing, assessment, including state assessments, local benchmark assessments,
so the curriculum
data analysis.
Is what the students are learning,
exactly,
and what the teachers are teaching,
right.
which is not always the same thing.
And and then the instructional piece, so the professional development planning around instruction is also falls under my job.
And how many schools are in your district that you supervise?
We're a small district. We have 5 elementaries, 2 middle schools, 1 comprehensive high school, and then an alternative high school, and a small adult education program.
And what about the program has been useful for you in carrying out your responsibilities?
Right. Well, like Tony said, what appealed to me about the program, and just so you know, I started at the very beginning of the program. I was part of the first cohort.
The guinea pigs.
Yes, very much so. But I was so excited when the flyer came out to see that Cal Poly had started an administrative services credential program. And I love the Cal Poly name, and it's a local university. It had such a great reputation. And excited that they were going to start this program, but that they were going to start it in a regional cohort model. And the personal attention that Tony talked about is a real thing. The phone number on the flyer was not a Cal Poly phone number. It was Tony's cell phone number. So he walked me through the admissions process, explained the program to me, got me situated into that cohort. And I will tell you that that first night of class, I probably looked like a deer in the headlights. I wasn't sure if this was something I could do, if I was cut out to be a leader. Through the course of the program, by the time it ended, not only had I completely reconceived how I viewed myself in terms of leadership, but all of my cohort mates, by then we had combined 2 cohorts, Chino and El Monte together, right? Is that right? And I remember saying to them on our last night of class, I would go to work for any one of you. You're all that kind of leader. And I've watched you all grow from walking in not knowing what was up to becoming someone ready to go out and lead. And I'd say that's the main thing of that program, is it completely revamps your perspective in terms of looking at things system-wide.
So even though you may not be as strong a leader coming in, by the time you come out, you've developed your skills, which is what we're trying to do.
Or the foundation of your skills, because so much of it is learned on the job. But you have a foundation of leadership and I think it embeds that courage in you to take those steps forward and really try and put yourself out there to be the leader that you see in all of the professors and our colleagues.
Okay, let's stop here and go back to Tony for a moment. Why do we need credentials? Can't just anyone become an administrator, someone get hired and begin to serve as a department chair or an assistant superintendent or a principal?
Well, aside from the fact that it's a state requirement, Yeah, you do need to have a program. You need to have a structure. Not, it's possible for someone to step in and be a superintendent and maybe be successful because, you know, they're exceptional individuals. The run-of-the-mill individual is going to have a tough time because and school administration is very complex and it's not an easy ride. And so aside from the fact that you're sitting on the hot seat continually as a superintendent, you do the same thing as a principal. You're sitting in a hot seat, and do you have the courage, do you have the intellect to be able to handle the kinds of challenges that come up? And sometimes people who think that the fact that they have not taught or they have not been in a credential program, they think they can do it, is sad because they're really going in handicapped, and it can be a disaster for the school and for the individual.
There are certain skills and certain knowledge that are really essential.
Right. Jeff, one thing, if I might add, what Rebecca was sharing with us was one of the goals of our program is to make sure that our students, when they leave, have a new lens. We say the lens they have when they come into our program is not the lens we want them to keep. We want them to expand that lens because that's how they're going to be able to see the things that need to be done and the things that, and how to go about it. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is I've seen these individuals reflect that concept of the lens. They have changed their lens, and Rebecca, I think, exemplified that.
All right.
Thank you.
It's appropriate to be talking about lenses when we have a TV camera
That's true.
staring us in the face. Kevin, how about you? What is your position, and what about this program prepared you for it?
Sure. I'm currently the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services at the Whittier Union High School District, and so many things that Rebecca mentioned, similar experience where coming into the program was a little unsure if this was the direction that I wanted to move into, but the practical nature of the program that Dr. Avina mentioned, I thought was something that captured all of the students really quickly. The quality faculty that were put in the classroom were real practitioners. These are real administrators that had so much experience and knowledge to bring into the classroom. There was a bit of the theoretical, but always couched in a practical setting and context, so that the classroom environment was very dynamic and rich in discussion around current topics that we all could connect with. I appreciate the confidence level. I think is something that you say of all of the things, of all the technical knowledge and the leadership skills that you develop in the program are extremely valuable. But I think the confidence as well to engage in those discussions. I recall a number of times Dr. Avina never let us sit in the classroom and not participate. Would call you by name and say, "What do you think?" You know, and for someone who's naturally introverted that would prefer to just sit in the back of the class and take notes, building that confidence and that experience of being able to discuss technical issues with colleagues, with other administrators who as faculty members, but also potential administrators in the classroom, and being able to demonstrate that maybe what I had to say, maybe what I had to offer was something that would work well in an administrative setting.
So this is something that I didn't expect, to think that you didn't come in as leaders or even thinking of yourself as leaders, but allowed the program to move you in that direction. So someone who's hesitating, we'd say give it a try.
Well, I think it's one thing to be a leader in the classroom or a leader within your own department as a former department chair. And there's that little bit of doubt. Does my perspective on things play well with adults? You know, is that something that's going to be widely accepted across an entire faculty? Can I step into that role?
It's not a given.
It's not. And I think, again, as a more introverted person, having that opportunity to practice those skills and see how it works and see how that engagement with a larger group of adult students, can I serve in that role, and am I going to be able to provide that leadership beyond our regular classroom as former teachers?
Okay.
Well, I'm in the classroom. This is my 23rd year in the classroom. Right, currently I'm in the 3rd grade. Taking on this role was interesting because I jumped into the program not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember Dr. Avina asking me, "So why are you here?" And my answer, and this is the honest truth, was, yeah, I needed more units to move over on the pay scale. And he said, at the end of this whole journey, we're going to change your attitude. And yeah, I mean, it definitely has. I think with exactly what the other two have said, you know, what I loved about it was, you know, the field work prepared you to do real life things. It was practical. Not only that, you got to look at your own school and to be reflective about the assignments. It wasn't just, oh, just get this done. How would you interpret it? How would you apply this if you were in the situation? Made us look at ourselves. What type of leader would we be out of all the different types of leaders that we could be? And being able to kind of role play, because we ultimately don't know what will be out there. But given that opportunity to, okay, how would I take this on? Or how would we? And then to be able to work in a group, you know, collaboratively and to, you know, find out what works with either your personality or the situation or the school itself or the environment, because we don't know what we're going to face.
So can you give us an example of some way you've used some of the course content or the program skills to do better at your job?
Well, for me, I find myself in a very interesting situation. I'm the most veteran teacher at my site. So I find myself kind of being that mentor, you know, person, that teacher that would lead, you know, being a part of school site council or being a part of all these other committees, and to kind of, you know, gather and push these other, you know, young ones, so to speak, you know, hey, we should be doing this, or let's do this. And
so you're doing some mentoring?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, and to see the coolest part, I guess, was now I understand what leaders have to go through. I think as a teacher, you just kind of do your job. But then now we fully understand why things are being done, why things are in place. Oh, that's why the budget is the way it is, or that's why things are coming top down, or what have you. You get a fuller, better understanding of you know, what has to be done at that level.
So if the policy is more clear to you, then you're better able to cooperate.
Oh, definitely.
And achieve the
goals. You understand the reasons,
right?
Yeah, why there's need for change, or why this is in place, or, you know, ultimately, who are we doing this for? You know, so, you know, your output, so to speak, you know, in the elements of a school, you know.
So with your credentials, you had the opportunity probably more than once to move into administrative positions.
There's potential, you know, opportunities. I haven't quite jumped on them yet because I'm currently enrolled here in the master's program for educational leadership. So
you're still in the master's program. Oh,
yes.
That's great.
So, you know, hopefully, you know, as the road, you know, journeys forward, there might be some paths to take.
So how is the master's program different from the credentials program?
Not quite as intimate, so to speak. I mean, I liked meeting with the cohort, having the one-on-one. It was more family orientated, you know, whereas the master's program can meet every so many, you know, days or weeks, or come on this day, and then, oh, you're on your own to work on your project or whatever it is. And, you know,
so it's more individualized when you get out of the cohort.
And I like the face-to-face.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's about networking, you know, and it's about collaboration. So yes. I appreciated that.
We learn a lot from each other.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Jeff, there's two things that I've asked these people to remember in their entire career from our program. There were two things, and one was learn to look and learn to listen, and the second one was don't accept the unacceptable. And this is something that we really push and try to keep reinforcing, because as administrators, you cannot allow things to exist that should not exist. You have to step up and you have to remedy them. And the only way you can do that is if you learn to look and learn to listen, so that you can go ahead and see those issues.
So by learning to look and learning to listen, you're gathering data on what's happening.
That's right.
At your, whether it's a school site or the district. You look like you have an anecdote to share.
I do. So I was thinking about the learn to look. We had an assignment in our course on school improvement and change, in which he provided us with a scenario of a school that was in quite a bit of trouble. And our assignment was to dissect the systems of that school and prescribe a course of action for change and improvement for that school. And learn to look was part of that. I remember, I think that was a subheading on the paper. What do you see and what's going on and what changes need to occur in this school. Well, that's exactly what my school administrative career has been. So when I landed as principal at Wickham High School in Glendora, which was a continuation high school in trouble, and
By a continuation high school, you mean, what's a continuation
oh,
high
okay.
school?
So it's an alternative high school setting where students go who are not successful in a comprehensive high school, and you put in alternative systems of education for them to allow them to be able to continue on in their high school without dropping out. So it's a dropout prevention and a recapturing and credit recovery program, but it's designed to get your most at-risk students to the graduation, and then now really post-secondary and getting them articulated to college on top of that. So the first thing I had to do when I got there was look and listen. I had 1 hour conversations with every single staff member before I even began the year. And together we redesigned a shared vision for change for that school and implemented it over the course of the next few years. That was exactly what I had done in Tony's class.
In the exercises. Yeah.
And here it was happening in real life, and this was the real thing.
But yet you got different pieces of data than you had anticipated, and you had to make accommodations. But ultimately, it led to a successful program, and you were lauded and ultimately promoted.
Yes, ultimately.
Right, right. So how about in your current job? Are you still looking and listening?
All the time. And because accountability is part of my job at the district as well, and so the local control accountability plan is on my desk. I share that responsibility with our assistant superintendent of ed services, and I'm continually looking at the dashboard, the pieces of data that come through, the input, now the qualitative input I get from teachers who have a say on their professional development and have a say in what curriculums get implemented and how they get implemented. So all of that is listening and looking and continually prescribing change and improvement.
So, and you're really using research skills in analyzing data, which is the kind of thing that we teach in our courses here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Kevin, how about you?
Sure. I remember in our personnel class in the program, and which is my primary responsibility now, is I remember Dr. White speaking about the importance of effective hiring, attracting and retaining the highest quality employee force that you can. And that's kind of evolved. Our motto in our personnel services division now is take care of those who take care of our students. And so that's part of that attracting, retaining, and really understanding the value of tenure and going out and finding the right employees for your organization, whether that's in the classified ranks, whether that's the head custodian at your campus, or your classroom teacher, or your administrators. But really at that time we were talking about the value of the highest quality employees in whatever role it could be. And if you kept that a priority, you know that your organization was going to be strong. And we recognize that now, and that's something that we continue to promote with our current administrators and their selection processes. In personnel services, we're involved in those processes and provide guidance and support throughout those processes to ensure that we find high quality employees, and then we try to do our best to take care of them, continue to train them and provide them with the benefits and compensation package that is going to retain them, because that's what our kids deserve.
And then, Byron, you have a situation where you're going to be not accepting the unacceptable. Can you give any examples of that?
Well, you never know what you're going to face, and I think you can't just accept what is there. You have to be able to take what you see, what you hear, and stand by what you've learned to apply, so that you can make your organization as best as you can be. I mean, you're not going to accept what the community wants or what your teachers want. I think as a leader, you have to inspire, you have to stand firm, make the changes that are going to be the most impactful for the students, and whatever it takes, you do what you got to do.
I think so much of that too is our faculty in the cohort program would bring in those concerns, and they modeled that so well. So when you have current administrators who are sharing their own challenges that they're facing in their own districts. And you see their continual focus on continuous improvement and looking to how do you not accept the unacceptable in those situations, and how do we make it better? And that is something that truly successful organizations and school districts continue to look at. How do I improve? How do we leave this district better than we received it? And that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of looking in the mirror and looking at yourselves critically. Studying the data and understanding what's in the best interest of our students and our community, and keeping that as a continual focus. And that's another piece, I think, of the program, is understanding the idea of student-centered decision-making and trying to always keep at the center of that process the outcome for students. And in doing so, I think that's how organizations continue to grow and improve.
Right. I'm aware that I've often said that so many of the policies that drive us crazy as students and as parents are for the benefit of adults rather than for the benefit of children. And this really turns that on its head. What is one of the surprises that you experienced in the program? I see that each of you grew as individuals, and you see your colleagues growing as individuals. But what is some piece of knowledge or information that surprised you and might have turned you around a little?
I'll start with that one. Being one of the districts that have hosted a cohort for many years over the time span of the program, the impact even on those that maybe didn't go on to pursue an administrative career, the growth in leadership that's occurred. You talked about seeing that perspective through the lens of an administrator. We have we're hosting a cohort currently at Pioneer High School, and a number of our faculty are in that program, and hearing from them and how their lens has changed, and whether or not they decide to go into the administrative profession or not, they're going to take away this learning. And I really feel that being a host district, the program has had an impact on the culture of the district. Our district has really aspired to provide distributed leadership opportunities to whether it's teacher leaders or administrators, and having a group of individuals that know. And I get phone calls around this time every year and say, when's Cal Poly going to come out and present in our district again? I'm thinking I want to do that next year. And having faculty members seeing that continual growth expectation that we have for kids, and taking that on their own as professionals and saying, this is another opportunity for me to continue to pursue education. The cultural impact has been tremendous.
How about either of you?
Well, I was going to say a
things?
lot of the other faculty within our district. Hey, you took that. How was it? Right? What do you think? So they're always questioning. They're intrigued. And so what did you think? How did it go? And you tell them, and you tell them straight, and so this is what we did. This is who you're going to become. All right. If this is what you want, do it. Go for it.
So people look to you as a leader as a result of the education.
Whether or not I'm in
had.
that position, right? I still consider myself a leader, because it's whether it be grade level, whether it be vertically, or just somebody on site, somebody on campus. And what I like about it too is the parents look at you. They heard that, oh, you went through the program. So the parents, which is that other component, if you can get them on your side as well, it says something. It speaks volumes.
Right. And it's easier to get changes made when you have parental and community support.
Definitely.
Okay. Rebecca, last one, final word.
And I'll be quick. But for me, this journey of getting my administrative credential was a journey of courage. And one of the first books that we had to read a book and do a book report, and we read Who Moved My Cheese? Do you remember that book? Mm-hmm. And one of the sayings that came out of that was, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I really use that to guide my steps after, and I still use it to this day. So that was a surprise that I still think back to that and remember, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And then do that thing.
So Tony, final word. Proud of this group of people?
Well, I think they're representative of the groups of people we've had. I've always said to my colleagues at the college, we get the best students. There's no question about it. My concern is getting them to the next step. Now, Becky has completed her doctorate. Kevin needs to get going on his. and Byron, you need to finish your master's and get going, buddy.
Right. Well, the opportunities are here, and we thank you for your contributions to this
Thank you.
discussion. It's been fascinating.